And you're ready to go, Chairperson Friedman.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Fair Oaks Community Planning Advisory Council, CPAC, for July 7th. This meeting is being recorded, and we'll start by handing this over to our clerk of the board to do roll call and make some announcements, and then I'll make a few announcements and we can get into our 2 agenda items for the meeting.
Thank you. This is Darrell with the clerk of the board. So, Member Bowman.
Present.
Member Korkos.
Present. I'm here.
Member Lease.
Present.
Member Starkovic. Member Walter. Member Wood.
Here.
And Member Friedman.
Present.
And you have a quorum. And for your announcements this evening, in compliance with directives with the county, state, and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, this meeting is live streamed and closed to in-person public participation. Temporary procedures are subject to change pursuant to guidelines related to social distancing and minimizing person-to-person contact. To make a verbal comment at today's meeting, dial 916-875-2500 and follow the prompts to be placed in queue for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter. When the chair opens public comment for a specific agenda item or off-agenda matter, callers will be transferred from the queue into the meeting to make a verbal comment. Written comments are also accepted. Send your email comment to boardclerk@saccounty.net, and your comment will be routed to the board and filed in the record. And that concludes my announcements.
Thank you. And this is Chair Friedman. Member Wood, could you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Certainly. I pledge allegiance to the flag
To the flag
of the
United States of America,
and to the
republic for which it stands,
One
nation,
under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
and justice
for all.
and justice for all.
Thank you, Member Wood. Okay, so just a few other quick announcements I'll make for folks who may be new to attending the CPAC meeting. The CPAC members are appointed by the Board of Supervisors and are volunteer members of the community. Just want to make you aware of the role that we play. We are an advising rather than a deciding body. So any of the items which we hear and vote upon, we will vote upon with a recommendation to whichever is the next hearing body where the item will be heard. So we can address whichever specific hearing body that is if you're interested, or the various items we have on the agenda tonight. So when speaking, please announce yourself for the record, and a few things around procedure. The order for each item, when we call an item to be heard, we'll have it read into the record by our clerk, and then the county will have the opportunity to present on that item. Following that, CPAC members will comment and ask any questions they have to the county employee. Following that, the applicant will have the opportunity to present, but I just want to clarify, because we had some questions before we went live with the meeting, that is not required. The applicant does have the opportunity, but is not required that they present. Following in the presentation, the CPAC members would have the opportunity to ask questions of the applicant. Next, within the procedure is that there would be any public comment. Our clerk of the board, Drill, mentioned how you can make those public comments. That's actually showing on the web meeting right now if you have any interest in making public comments. Those public comments or questions should be directed to the CPAC members rather than to the applicant directly. And you are welcome, if you're making public comment, but not required to identify yourself by name. Applicants following that will have the opportunity to respond to any items collectively that were asked of the public. Following that, there'll be a CPAC discussion, any further questions that they have to either the applicant, county, or addressing any comments made by the public, and we will have a discussion and vote on each item. So having said that, we can go ahead and have our first item read in for the record.
Okay, item number 1 is going to be the Olive 2 subdivision map located at 8572 Sunset Avenue in the Fair Oaks Community, request for a tentative subdivision map, special development permit, and design review.
All right, so and do we have Kimber from the county to present on this item?
Yes, good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect.
Welcome.
Thank you. Well, good evening. My name is Kimber Gutierrez, and I am a senior planner with the Office of Planning and Environmental Review with Sacramento County, and I will be presenting both items tonight. The project before you right now is PLNP 2021-00040 Olivito Subdivision Map. Next slide, please. For those listening in, members of the public, you can access all project materials online at www.planningdocuments.saccounty.net. You do need to type into the control number, which is again PLNP 2021-00040. And when you hit the search button, it does pop up with all the project information as well as all published documents. Next slide, please. The site consists of one parcel, approximately 9.24 acres in size, and is located in the Residential 2 zoning district. The property is located at 8572 Sunset Avenue, approximately 650 feet east of the Sunset Avenue and Kenneth Avenue intersection in the Fair Oak community. The subject parcel was formerly an orchard. There are 569 trees on site, comprising of olive, mulberry, walnut, plum, citrus, cherry, apricot, persimmon, oak, cedar, and pine species. There are also 5 existing structures on site. Surrounding land uses include single-family residential developments. Northwest and east surrounding areas are zoned residential 2, and the development to the south is zoned residential 3. Next slide, please. The request for you all tonight is for a tentative subdivision map, special development permit, and design review. The tentative subdivision map is to divide the 9.24 gross acre parcel into 16 single-family residential lots. The special development permit is to allow reductions in the required minimum lot area of 20,000 net square feet for proposed lots 5, 6, and 7. The special development permit is also to allow the 16 lots to be served by a private drive, as well as fencing up to 8 feet in height located along the perimeter of the subject parcel, which exceeds the maximum permitted height of 7 feet. And then the design review is to comply with our countywide design guidelines. Next slide, please. Here is the tentative subdivision map. The proposed lot sizes range between 17,475 square feet to 40,945 square feet. The proposed lots would be served by a gated private drive from Sunset Avenue, which would be aligned with Macy Lane, which is a private road to the north. A 15-foot wide sewer easement is proposed along the western boundary of proposed lot 7, and a drainage basin is proposed in the southwest portion of proposed lot 4. Approximately 67% of the existing trees on site, so 383 trees, would be removed. The majority of the trees would be removed for structural and or health reasons, so it's approximately 374 of them, and 33% of the existing trees, so 186 trees, would be retained. The trees proposed for retention would either be in their existing locations or would be replanted elsewhere on site. All of the existing structures on site are also proposed for removal. The applicant is proposing the development of the subdivision be done in 2 phases. So as you can see, the blue dashed line kind of separates the 2 phases from each other. Phase 1 would be to finish lots 1 through 6, improve Sunset Avenue as required, install frontage fencing, entry gates, and landscaping on Sunset Avenue, install new perimeter fences on lots 1 through 5, install Olivito Lane along lots 1 through 6, as well as a temporary cul-de-sac at the phase line in front of lot 7, and install wet and dry utilities as required for lots 1 through 6. Phase 2 would consist of finishing lots 7 through 16, installing the new perimeter fence along lots 7 through 12, and installing the remainder of Olivito Lane and removing the temporary cul-de-sac as well as installing the wet and dry utilities as required for lots 7 through 16. Next slide, please. Here's the conceptual site plan and details. At the entry of the private drive, prior to entering the gate, 2 21-foot wide travel lanes would be provided and separated by a 10-foot wide median. The gate is set back approximately 100 feet from Sunset Avenue, and additionally, an approximately 4.5 foot tall subdivision entry monument sign would be set back approximately 15 feet from the right-of-way. So you can see the detail on the right of the screen. Within the interior of the subdivision, the private drive would be 36 feet wide, providing 2 10-foot wide travel lanes and 2 8-foot wide parking shoulders. Along the parcel's frontage with Sunset Avenue, a 20-foot wide landscape planter is proposed with a 7-foot tall concrete masonry unit wall with wood planks located behind the planter. So that is the wall located on the top right of the screen. And then along the western, southern, and eastern perimeters of the subject parcel, adjacent to existing single-family residential uses, wooden fencing, so it's identified as perimeter fencing on this perimeter fence on this screen, would range between 6 to 8 feet in height. The perimeters of proposed lots 1, 2, 4, and 9 through 11 would also contain retaining walls ranging between 0 to 4 feet in height. At these locations, the maximum combined height of both the retaining wall as well as the wood fencing could be up to 12 feet in height. Next slide, please. I did touch on all of these points, so I won't go over them in too much detail, but I did want to note that although no specific product is currently proposed, it is intended that detached single-family residential structures would be single-story and range between 3,000 and 4,000 square feet in size. The project was considered as an early CPAC workshop item by the Fair Oaks CPAC in January of this year. The project was heard by the Design Review Advisory Committee on June 10th. The DRAC members did recommend that the project be found in compliance with the countywide design guidelines and requested that the future home plans be reviewed by the Design Review Administrator. The upcoming meeting, so the final hearing body is the Planning Commission. No date has been set for the final hearing. And then the anticipated environmental document is an initial study mitigated negative declaration. So with that, I will conclude staff's presentation and can answer any questions.
Thank you very much. And I want to remind our CPAC members, as I was reminded by our Vice Chair, thank you, Mr. Bowman, that we had an early workshop on this item in January. So just to refresh everyone's memory about, they may recall some of the comments, both written and dial-in from the public about this item. So with that, are there any questions for the county? We can start by doing our round robin. Member Bowman, do you have any questions for the county?
Not at this time, thank you.
Member Corcos?
Not for the county, but for the applicant.
Okay. Member Lease?
Nope, looks fine to me.
And I don't see that Member Starkovich has joined, so we'll skip him, as well as I believe the same for Member Walter. Member Wood?
If the applicant is available, I think I have a couple of questions for them, but none for the county. Thank you.
For the county. Okay, great. So I also have no questions for the county. I recall it doesn't look all that much change since the workshop. So with that, we can move on to hearing from the applicant. If there's an applicant presentation or any comments before we go to CPAC questions for the applicant. Do we have a member representing the applicant?
Yes, this is Tim Lee with Tower Development.
Hello, welcome.
Hello. Thank you to the board. As mentioned, we were in front of you back in January. And back then we were proposing 18 lots with a similar circular type drive, same type of entry statement. We listened, we looked at a few things, and we shrunk the entitlement to 16 lots. And we do have, previously there were going to be 5 lots that we were going to be under the 20,000. Now we have 3 lots in this special development permit. But the average lot size is still over 24,000 square feet for all the properties. And one of the other things that we discussed at design review is our frontage fence wall along Sunset. We're set back 20 feet. On the plan, we're showing that it's CMU with wood planking, and then we have 62 feet on center. We got our masonry columns, and we had a masonry cap on that. And one of the concerns we had was how it was looking from the inside. You're looking at the back of the cinder block. And so one of the ideas that we discussed as well and we threw out there was we still would keep the masonry columns, we still would keep the heavy wood planks, but we might not have a CMU wall, behind it, so that it looks nice from both the inside and the outside of the development. And then the other thing that we really focused on was the drainage. We had talked about, using low impact development standards to enhance the infiltration of the runoff and provide for no increases to the existing 100-year overland releases. And so what we did is we had our engineer prepare a preliminary grading and drainage study in conjunction with talking to Water Resources. And so as part of that, they come up with this plan. And this plan involved retention and detention in various locations on the property. So the first thing we did was we came up with a shed map. And basically a shed map says, where's the water draining? Where is it coming from? Where is it going as it relates to the existing property right now? And so we ended up with 3 different sheds. Shed A, the northwest part of the property, which is basically lots 1, 2, and half of 3. Shed B was the southwest corner, which included 1/2 of the south side of lot 3, lot 4, lot 5, and lot 7. And then shed C was the rest of the property, and that drained over to the eastern part of the property where there's between lots 10 and 11, there was a 10-inch storm drain stub that came to the property from the development that was built there, and the water went in there. So what the engineers did was they basically, this is a very, we try to keep natural grades as much as possible, as far as how, so we kind of got the nice, flows that were taking place there, and we didn't want to change the shed. So everything pretty much follows the same flows, but what we've done now is we incorporated some detention basins, but a lot of what we did too is we put in 36-inch to 60-inch pipe that's below ground and basically flat. So it allows the water to go in there, and it has a choke point. So it fills up, and then it doesn't allow a deluge, but it allows a controlled, steady release over time. And so we put those in place. And so on the east side of the property, we have some lines that come off of the street, and then we have lines that come from the top, the north, where the water currently kind of drops off the street and then dumps into the neighbor's property. So it won't do that anymore. It'll come into our pipes. And then the same thing from the south. And that'll be all controlled there. On the southwest corner, on the south line where water currently flowed down, sometimes would go into the neighbor's yards to the south. We now have pipes that drain inlets and pipes that will pick that up. Plus, we're going to build a curb along that wall that so that water can't go over, and it has to go into our pipes and into the drainage basin in the southwest corner. And then on the northwest corner, we did a similar thing where we got a elongated drainage catch basin that lets the water sit in there and then have a regulated flow out. And so what we're going to do is on our final maps, we'll have private drainage easements recorded over these. And in our CCNRs, we're going to provide for the maintenance of these facilities by the developer or the HOA. And so that was the main changes. We listened to you. We heard that you wanted us to keep the circular drive instead of doing, a cul-de-sac with the J. So we kept that flow. And but Kimber did a really good job describing the project, and that's really kind of the changes, the enhancements we made since our last meeting. So with that, I'm open to any questions.
Great. Thank you very much. So we'll start same order, going around for comments and questions from the CPAC to the applicant. Member Bowman?
I'll defer to the others right now. Thank you.
Sure. Member Corcos, you said you had some questions.
I do. Looking at this plan that you were just showing us, the site plan and details, where I don't see where the gate fits in on the entryway. And I'm just saying that because Sunset's ridiculously busy and I can't.
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of hard to see. So as you're looking at this plan, so you see the entryway off of Sunset where there's no trees planted. You come down, you see that first red tree. Yeah. That's in the median. So that's a red maple. It'll get big there. And so we got two 21-foot lanes that go past that median. And then you drop down, you see those kind of a couple pink trees.
Yeah.
Yeah. So right there is where the gate is. It's 100 feet off.
Okay, cool. Got that. That was
yeah.
Wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
And then now you have you want to do this in two phases. I know you can't really tell me what that means time-wise, but what do you project? I just think for the neighborhood having 4 years of building going on versus 2 years of building going on versus is a big deal.
Yeah, and then the main part of the neighborhood. So in phase one, all of Sunset gets done. All the landscaping gets put in out there, the frontage wall, the entryway, all that's done. So as far as the majority of the public going by, it's a finished product for them.
No, I'm not worried about much about the public going by. I'm talking about the people that live next door.
Right. No, I was going into that next one.
Okay.
So we're not even sure we're going to phase it, but we did want to have that option, and I can defer because there's not a set timeline for that, and the owner is on the line, and perhaps he could speak to that a little better than me.
Well, I mean, unless he's got a hard date, that's kind of we're just spinning our wheels. I just wanted to point out that is a concern I'm sure of the neighbors, that this is going to be a dusty, ongoing thing for 12 months or 72 months, and I just want you guys to be mindful of that. I'm sure you will, but I just wanted to make sure that was on the record. My last question for you guys is there going to be any sort of an HOA to maintain this thing?
Yeah, so we're going to have CCNRs, and then in the, before we sell any lots, the developer will be maintaining the property, and then once homes are being built and lots are being sold, there would be an HOA that would go into place.
Because I want to make sure, because you're going to have a wooden wall fence going around. It's going to look fantastic for about 10 years. So is there something set up to make sure that that's going to be?
There definitely would be documents set up to make sure that everything's taken care of and everything's maintained.
Okay, I'm out. That's it for me. Thank you for your answers.
Okay.
Thank you, Member Corcos. Just to expand a little bit on the question of timeline before we move on to our next member, is there anything that is sort of binding you to a longer timeline, I guess I would ask? So, I suppose what I'm asking is, if possible, are you looking to move as fast as possible in having all of these properties built, sold, occupied, that sort of thing? Or is there anything that is sort of binding you to potentially a longer timeline?
This is going to be a very nice project. It's going to be $1 million plus homes.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be demand that will drive the project. And so I can't say that there's anything that's going, bind us, but I can't foresee the future.
All right. If you could you ever have predicted this past year? But despite that, there is high demand. So I guess that's something that we can consider. And then, if there are any public comments, certainly demand is still high at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll move on to our next member. Member Elise, do you have any questions for the applicant?
I'm just curious, the reason for the 12-foot tall fences is because of the slope of the lot, I'm assuming?
Yeah, so the reason for that is, so our fences are generally going to range 6 to 8 feet, and that just has to do kind of with topography and what's happening. Now, in a few spots, because of the on-site retention, and we don't want water to drain onto the adjoining properties, and we want to capture it, and we want to retain it, so it doesn't cause any issues. We need to build some retaining walls in those areas. Say like lot 12, everything right now kind of came off the street and it kind of fell down and then dropped into that property to the east. So while most of the property is really high, that one corner is down low, and so we're going to kick that up about 4 feet.
I assume that was a situation, but I'm wondering where all the 12-foot sections would be.
So there's one at 12. There's probably one right there at 11 and 10 where it had been lower before and used to flow on that property. So we're raising it up again, not to have that happen. It's probably down at the corner of 4, and then it's probably going to be around 11 right up there at 1. Where the most.
What type of retaining wall are you guys going to be using on it?
You know what? It'll be we haven't actually done the final design, but most likely it'd be a CMU, concrete reinforced wall that would go there.
Yeah,
I just on top of it.
Yeah, I was curious because if you did that and then this thing failed, the people behind you are not going to be happy, and it will fail eventually. So
designed by engineers, and the county will look at it, and it'll be rock solid.
Okay, that's all I had.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you, Member Lease. Member Wood.
So my questions were going to be on maintenance of both the landscaping and the drainage, but you have addressed that there will be an CCNRs and an HOA, and so hopefully those things will be maintained. As far as the timing goes, once mass grading is done, you have very little dust issues. So, and if you do half of it mass graded and then the other half a couple of years later if needed, I think that's not such a big deal. And currently it seems like everybody is working on their homes. So, if you are at home in the middle of the day, in the middle of the week, hammering and air compressors and nail guns going off, even in well-developed neighborhoods, there's always maintenance going on around you. So, and your lots are large and everything is set back enough that I don't think it will be a big imposition on the neighbors, even if the building does drag out for 3 or 4 years. I think anymore you hear that kind of noise all the time anyway. And like I said, the dust is really only an issue during mass grading. So I love what you've done, and you answered my questions with the HOA. So thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Member Wood. Yeah, certainly a lot of care has been put into the planning of this development, and we appreciate that you took the time to bring this forward as a workshop item. We know that that's not required, and we know that it's additional time and expense for any applicant. So we do appreciate that and giving an additional opportunity for the community to offer input. And we especially appreciate when much of that input has been taken into consideration and applied to projects. So thank you for that. And having said that, our next portion will move on to any public comments, if there are any. Jarrell, do we have anyone on the line for public comment?
There are currently no verbal public comments at this time for item number 1.
Okay, and just to confirm, we also did not have any written comments. So having said that, we can move on to a discussion or a vote if there are any recommendations from the board. And just a reminder to the members of the CPAC, when making that recommendation, it should be phrased as a recommendation to ... And we can move on from there. So any comments, discussion? We can open it up. No roll call necessary.
Well, this is Member Wood. I recommend approval as presented.
Member Bowman, second.
Okay, and then we'll do a roll call vote from our clerk.
Member Bowman,
Yes.
Member Korkos,
Unmute. Yes.
Member Lees,
Yes.
Member Starkovic, Member Walter, Member Wood,
Yes.
and Member Friedman.
Yes.
And your motion carries with those members present.
Thank you very much to the applicant for your time, and to our county employees who made the presentation. No longer necessary to stay on the line, although you are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting. With that, we will have the clerk of the board, Jarrell, read in our next item on the agenda.
Yes, item number 2 is going to be Fair Oaks Water District Corporation yard renovation located at 10326 Fair Oaks Boulevard in the Fair Oaks community. Request for a development plan review and special development permit.
Okay, and I see Kimber. It's a busy night for Kimber. So do you have a presentation for this item?
I do, thank you. Good evening again. This is Kimber Gutierrez, and I will be presenting PLMP 2020-00201, which is the Fair Oaks Water District Corporation yard renovation. Next slide, please. Just to reiterate that planning documents can be reviewed and project details reviewed online at www.planningdocuments.saccounty.net. You will need to type in the control number, which is PLNP 2020-00201. Next slide, please. The project site is located at 10326 Fair Oaks Boulevard, approximately 650 feet southeast of the Sunrise Boulevard and Winding Way intersection in the Fair Oaks community. The project consists of 2 parcels, totaling approximately 1.59 acres, and is in the commercial district sub-area of the Fair Oaks Village Special Planning Area. The project site is currently developed with structures and paved areas to support operations as the Fair Oaks Water District Corporation yard. The site is surrounded by a variety of uses, including single-family residences, offices, retail, and commercial businesses. And this includes the Fair Oaks Water District Administrative Office Building, which is located to the south across Fair Oaks Boulevard. Existing activities at the Corporation Yard include office work, deliveries, training, storage of plumbing-related materials and files, dispatching crews, movement and removal of site materials. Next slide, please. The project proposes to renovate the Fair Oaks Water District Corporation Yard by demolishing existing structures and constructing new structures and site improvements. All of these necessitated the request for a development plan review and special development permit. So the development plan review is to allow the construction of new buildings, which I will go over in more detail on the next slide. And the special development permit is to allow the annex structure, carport, car wash bays, and trash enclosure to be located approximately 4 feet from adjacent existing residential uses to the north, which deviates from the special planning area standards for the location of buildings. Next slide, please. So here's the proposed site plan. New structures proposed include a 16,390 square foot, 30-foot tall main building. So that's the big white building on the corner. A 1,680 square foot, 23-foot tall annex structure, which is the white structure located in the back, along the back property line. 18-foot tall covered carports and car wash bays, which are located along the property line as well. Hazardous storage shed, as well as a trash enclosure. Equipment and material storage would be covered and located along the western and northern perimeters of the project site, and the existing driveway on Fair Oaks Boulevard and Winding Way would be maintained. Both driveways are currently gated, so they are proposed to remain gated with the proposed project. Next slide, please. Here is the main building elevations as well as some renderings. So the top right is the south elevation, and the bottom elevation is the west elevation, showing a kind of communal courtyard for the project. Next slide, please. Here's the annex structure elevations as well as the renderings for those as well. So the renderings do show kind of a better idea of what the property lines would look like that are adjacent to some surrounding single-family residences. Next slide, please. So as I stated, existing single-family residential and commercial uses abut the project site to the north and the east. An existing 4.5 foot tall retaining wall with a 6 foot tall wood fencing on top is located along the shared property line with the uses to the north. Along the majority of the eastern property line adjacent to the commercial uses, a new 6 foot tall wooden fence would be installed. There are 13 existing trees, so 12 ornamental pear and 1 coast redwood along the project site's frontage with Fair Oaks Boulevard and Winding Way. These are all proposed to be removed with the proposed project, and the applicant is proposing new landscaping and trees along the frontage. Next slide, please. Again, I did cover all of these during my presentation, so I'll be brief with this slide, but existing operations and activities at the Corporation Yard, which I did go over, they are not anticipated to change or increase in any way due to the proposed project. The project was heard by the Design Review Advisory Committee on June 24th. The DRAC members did recommend that the project could be found in compliance with the countywide design guidelines. The final hearing body for this project is also the Planning Commission, and no date has been set. And the anticipated environmental document is a notice of exemption. So with that, I will conclude my staff report, and I believe we have the applicants on the line who are Gutierrez Associates. And I would just like to note that there's no relation between myself and the applicant. And with that, I will conclude.
Thank you very much. I will go through the roll call reverse order this time to see if there are any questions from the CPAC for the county. Member Wood, any questions for the county?
None for the county.
Okay. Member Lees?
No, none for the county.
Okay, thank you. Member Corcos?
Yes. Question for the county. What is the code for allowable structural heights in the Fair Oaks SPA? 30 feet seems pretty tall.
Great question. Let me pull up my notes.
I know in residential it's 17 feet at the top of the eave or whatever, but I don't know what it is in commercial.
So the maximum building height is actually 50 feet.
In the SPA?
Yes.
Okay. That's my only question for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Member Karkos. Member Bowman, any questions for the county?
None for the county, thank you.
Thank you. I also do not have any questions for the county at this time. So with that, we will move on to see if there is a presentation from the applicant. I know there were a couple of members with the applicant from the Fair Oaks Water District, and then there's also Gutierrez Associates. And would any of you like to comment or make a presentation on this item?
Hi, this is Mara Gutierrez from Gutierrez Associates. We wanted to just discuss the design a little bit. Okay, thank you. So the water district was built in 1970, and it has not been renovated since that time. So it's kind of come to the end of its useful life. And currently the architecture does not match the SPA code of Fair Oaks. So we took a nod to the administrative building across the street, looking at Spanish Revival architecture. So there'll be offices along the front line, the front property line, and in the rear, which you probably won't be able to see from the street. I know one of the members was concerned with the 30-foot tall building. That's the shop building in the rear of the property. It's actually set back 50 feet from the street.
About 50 feet.
Yeah, and then along the bottom of that up to 18 feet will be a covered canopy. So we believe that even though it is 30 feet in the rear, because of the way it's set on the site and the covered canopies, that it'll actually not be as drastic, yeah, or as imposing as it maybe sounds. Essentially, the district likes the flow and the location of most of the buildings on the site. So most of the structures are in similar locations that they are currently. However, we've kind of organized the site to function better with parking along the side and then moving the construction kind of soils to the rear of the property, and then giving them more landscaping and planting of the site. Is there something else you wanted to say about the design effort?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. Yeah, we're just trying to make sure that we tuck in nice with the downtown district. So that's why we're trying to keep muted colors, and we're trying to relate to existing buildings there, the community center building, again, the district across the way. We're trying to, kind of step back all the design. So that way from the street, it's not an imposing heavy structure. We have landscaping, then we have, a fence, a little bit larger of a building, and then the final building. So we kind of took everything into consideration to make it, work with the downtown district and be a good neighbor. So, something you wanted to add?
Well, one thing I wanted to mention that the district is really interested in maintaining good community relations relationships and working with the community. And we're providing for them this little kind of park area with a little lagoon that can be used for community meetings or for demonstrations of landscaping and waterworks, and et cetera. And also, in conjunction to that, the district is interested in providing additional parking on the weekends for the community center of Fair Oaks, because on weekends, parking gets kind of short. So they're looking forward to really work with the community, especially on this site.
This is Member Corcos. Could I ask you a couple design questions, or am I out of turn there, Ms. Reed?
A little bit out of turn. So why don't we see if they're finished with their presentation? And we'll let you go first.
Yes, I think we're finished with our presentation.
Sure. Then go ahead. Go ahead, Liam.
All right. So I've got a couple questions. First of all, did you guys hold any kind of public workshops to, hey, let's design our new building? Or did y'all just kind of do it?
We had user intervention and meetings at the Fair Oaks Water District in their administrative building. And those were open to the public, and we presented 3 designs, one that was Spanish Revival, one that was a little more industrial, and we got some input from the public and also from the board, the Fair Oaks Water District Board, and we decided that that we would go forward with the Spanish Revival design because it matches most closely to the existing administrative building, and then also the other structures within the community of Fair Oaks.
Okay, so on that Spanish design question, you mentioned something earlier, Ms. Gutierrez, that you said it fit the code of the SPA design for Fair Oaks. To be honest with you, the design of the Fair Oaks SPA says it would be very eclectic. It didn't say that there was any design codes. And I've heard from several people that they feel like you're turning this into like Mission San Jose, where we have Spanish style, Spanish style, Spanish style, where I can't see another Spanish style building anywhere in the Fair Oaks Village except for yours. So it's almost like you're changing the fabric of the village, not enhancing it. Just saying that, just my own personal opinion, but I don't see another Spanish design anywhere in the village. And now we've got 2 of the largest structures in the village. Again, if you did public comment, I mean, I get that, but I never heard about it. Couple other questions in. One of the gentlemen just said that you're going to open this up on the weekends or in the evenings for public parking, but you're going to have a gate. Is that going to be open? You're going to have a gate down there on Fair Oaks Boulevard to the east, I guess, of the building. You're going to have a mechanical gate there. Are you going to have a mechanical gate in the back toward where the car washes are, so that?
Yeah, I can answer that question. So there's going to be a tier.
You're breaking up.
At the very front, when you come in, that all the time will be public parking for visitor parking, and then there's a gate there, and that will lead into employee parking. But when they're not in operation and, during your festival, during farmers market, what they can do is they can leave that gate open. And then there's a gate that at the very back towards the annex building, there's going to be a gate there. And that'll be closed all the time. So that way we'll be able to secure our site. So
will those other employee part, will that be open just by default, or it's only going to be open for farmers markets and chicken festival? Because I know that we have a parking issue all over the village. We all know that. And what you're doing immediately is taking away about 8 or 10 spaces that's on the road right now that you park sort of parallel to the street.
No, I don't believe we're taking away any parking at this time. And then we're going to be adding, I mean, I can't count it exactly right now, but I think we're adding about 20 spaces. That would be available for use.
I'm saying that's fantastic if those spaces are going to be available on an ongoing regular basis, not just on Chicken Festival days. That's what I'm asking you.
Well, so I think they will be. I could let the district answer that better, but just during our work time, we're not going to be able to offer those because that's parking for our.
Oh, yeah, understandable, but you guys usually close at 5 o'clock, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's something that we could work with the city to make it work for everybody.
No, that would be great, and we just have to let people know that. My last question on this, that I'm a little concerned for the neighbors that live back on Vintage Oaks Lane, right? You're gonna you want a 4-foot setback on somebody's front yard, backyard. You want a 4-foot setback so you can put car washes, a gravel quarry, tractor and bulldozer parking. That's rough, man. These people got nice houses, and now you guys want to change that to where they got a bulldozer starting up at 7 in the morning right behind their bedroom, 4 feet away? That's crazy.
Well, actually, we're enhancing the current situation. There isn't a setback of 4 feet.
But you also don't have a car wash and you don't have tractor parking.
No, we're going to have covered parking. And so right now, those neighbors look directly into, a blacktop. And we're going to have a new retaining wall. And then we're also going to have like a nice covered parking area. So it's going to kind of clean up the site and organize it and hopefully keep more of the debris that probably migrates to their house at this point contained.
Okay, and then my final question, because I just remember this, the building that you're putting in that's going to be 30 foot tall, right? That's just going to be like a pole barn, so there won't be anybody looking into these people's backyards from 30 foot high.
Exactly.
Yes, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it for me. Thank you very much.
I actually wanted to go back to the design. You had a concern about the Spanish style architecture. And what we were reading through the special development district, that the Spanish style architecture was one of the types of architecture that the town of Fair Oaks wanted to adopt. The administrative building is already an example of that. And also, if you go down one street, I'm not sure the name of it.
I'm looking it up. It's the community center clubhouse. That's also in Spanish style. So that's right next to.
Also going away, by the way, I believe, right?
It's I think it's a block over, I believe, and it's part of the downtown. So it's near the Fair Oaks Theater Festival, and then it's right next to there, and that's the community center, and that's in Spanish style also.
And I think I would describe the design as eclectic because the front structure that runs along the streetscape is Spanish style, but in the rear it's essentially a metal building. So, the two structures don't exactly match. I wouldn't say that, the 30-foot structure in the back is not going to be Spanish style. It's going to be kind of like a clean structure that's more conducive with its use.
And I hope by, varying the volumes and everything.
Well, I'm going to read you right now Section 502.18 Development Standards from the SPA under Design. This article does not prescribe any specific style or scheme for development of the village area. Rather, it attempts to encourage development which is sensitive to the terrain and will relate to existing construction and development in the village. Okay, I don't see Spanish style anywhere in here, by the way. And I'm just saying, as a person who's been living here for 30 years, you're making, by what you're going to do, you're making us go Santa Barbara, which is fine. But by having two enormous buildings, Spanish style across from each other, we now have Spanish style. Just saying. That's not what's meant by the design standards of the SPA. It's to keep the eclectic architecture and motif. And I feel that what you're doing is you got 40,000 square feet, 50,000 square feet of Spanish. And I don't remember any of those meetings. I never got any in the mail.
Actually, on that point, so this is Chair Friedman. Just so we make sure that we have enough time for comments from all of the members as well. A few comments on that. So they're not adding two buildings that are Spanish style. They're adding one building that's Spanish style because there's already an existing building that's Spanish style, right? So
yeah, they added that one.
Right, and then one quick question for the applicant, because there was it cut out for just a moment, right, as you were saying, the year that the Fair Oaks Water District building was put in. It said 1900, but it didn't say. I didn't hear the year after that. I know it's one of the original older buildings in the village.
1979.
1979. Okay, thank you. Which is probably. Obviously, there are some older buildings and structures still remaining in the village, but I'm not sure I share the argument that this will necessarily sway everyone, because we welcome, and I think that's part of the role of the SPA and the role of the CPAC is to consider if eclectic is the standard that we're considering for the village, that we do maintain that we are not encouraging further that every applicant coming before us would maintain this standard, or that the SPA would encourage this standard of Spanish style. But that is something that they have chosen. Quick question for the applicant again: who was noticed and who was engaged in the process of the design?
The Fair Oaks Water District has monthly meetings, and so that is posted on their website, and those happen the second Wednesday of every month.
Okay. Perfect. So obviously open to the public, and anyone had the opportunity to, I'm assuming, kind of dial in or web-based or whatever it was over the past year or so.
No, this was pre-pandemic, so these were...
okay. So these were in-person meetings.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in person.
Okay. So, Member Corks, we can go back to you if you have other questions. I want to make sure that we at least do a round robin, then we can come back to you if you have others. And then it sounds like the applicant is going to take into consideration and speak to both community, whether it's the county or some others, about the possibility of the need and how parking could be accessed after their business hours, and how that could be either maintained or noticed, posted somehow, possibly. So they're going to look into that, they've said. Let's see, Member Bowman, did you have any questions for the applicant?
Member Bowman, and I just wanted to confirm, I think I see it. There's going to be a gate at the back between the main building and the annex. If I see that correctly, I think it says 32 something gate. Is that correct?
I don't know if the county has the ability to kind of scroll over, because I think we're looking there. I think there are at least 3 gates. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think I see where the one is going to be, and then the forwardmost gate on that eastern side I see dividing the front 10 spaces to then the employee parking. But I just wanted to confirm that that's where the gate is going to be in the back between the annex building and the new structure.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, otherwise I see that the 10 spots up front are going to be public parking, fully accessible, which kind of replaces the 10 street side parking right now. I don't see any deviation from that number of spots, including plus the one ADA. So I like the idea of the gate. No further questions.
I think there is to confirm a gate from the street even to that public parking that could be closed off if that was their choice. But the intention is to at least keep that open during business hours. Is that right? To the applicant, is that a gate there right that leads into the public parking as well?
Are you asking me, Kimber? So there's two at street level. So right at the street, one on the left side, the west side, and then one on the southeast side. And then there's the one that goes in past the public parking, which is the first 10 spots. And then there's one at the annex building and the edge of the other building on the north side. And that's all we have for gates. And then all the parking on the north side will be covered, including the car wash.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for clarifying.
Sure.
Any other questions, Member Bowman?
No further questions.
Okay, Member Lees?
No, I think they're pretty well answered. I echo Leon's sentiments about the design, but don't know if that's appropriate right now or not.
Member Wood, any questions or comments?
Yeah, a couple actually, and the same concerns about maintaining nature of the village with what the Parks Department is planning for amphitheater and what you guys are planning for the courtyard. That's two very different structures that are now going to both be kind of this Spanish revival, and I do worry that, you know, they're both public buildings and that the public agencies are now kind of forcing this overall Spanish revival. I mean, there's a little bit of the townhouse, I guess you could consider it kind of in that mode. Maybe parts of the Mary Scott building, you know, but and not really the brew pub, but I think we're forcing the Spanish revival, and we're losing more of the variation that's there now. Personally, the building that's there now. One of my questions was, where are the operations going to move to during the construction process, and about how long do you think construction will take? Is the applicant still there?
Yeah, I know that the applicants.
Sorry, we
were.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So the plan is to move it to a temporary industrial site. So offsite, we're not gonna continue, working out of this. And then we're estimating construction anywhere from about a year to 18 months.
Okay. And I think it is nice if you can supply more parking for the village even after hours, having those spaces available will be somewhat of a help. I mean, even 10 parking places is a help. I would say, very few people probably get the monthly agenda for the water district. And I think you could have done a little better job with your outreach. There's the FOVEC group, the Fair Oaks Visioning group. I think it would have been really good to have at least done outreach to that group to let them know that something was going on with redoing the courtyard. I think you would have gotten some different input on the architectural style if you had done that. It's water under the bridge at this point, but I am concerned about that. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Member Wood. A few questions on this point of the initial design decision that I'd like to ask of the applicant. This is Chair Friedman. You'd mentioned that there were 3 styles that were presented. Very briefly, would you be able to share what those styles were? And I think you may have said that, and I hear that again. So I know there's obviously Spanish Revival.
Yes. So this design was the Spanish Revival, and then we had one that was more industrial. So it had the overall, both buildings were industrial. Maybe say slightly closer to what's existing, but not woodsy. And then the last structure was kind of a combination of both industrial and kind of modern Spanish flat roofs.
Okay. Approximately how many people would you say engaged in or even attended, members of the public, I should say, attended those meetings, those Fair Oaks Water District meetings where I assume it was more than just one, because it was obviously a long process. But on average at any given meeting, what sort of engagement do you get?
Maybe 10 people. Yeah, the room was full, their board room. So it's
okay.
As the board members, and then most of the seats seem to be filled.
Yeah. Okay. Obviously, not a huge number, but I think
Excuse me, this is Member Wood. But you said that there was an outreach to the employees. So was it just full of the employees who wanted to weigh in on what their new workspace was going to look like, or was it truly members of the community?
It was members of the community.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I mean, I do agree with, again, this is Chair Friedman, I do agree with other members of the CPAC that there are, and this goes for any project that we hear, there's just like the item that we heard just before this, there was an early workshop for that. Those sorts of opportunities to engage in with the community, have neighbors noticed through the CPAC process. That's always a great idea. It is a little bit water under the bridge, but we just encourage that to take place as much as possible with any possible community engagement, with as many avenues of engagement as possible. I do, however, want to address that there's been some concern that the public, or that the sort of association of different government agencies is sort of forcing this style upon people. And I do actually at least want to present the possibility that the community members, employees, anyone who attended these meetings, or really any member of the public, it is at least possible that they chose this style and they appreciate the consistency. So there's also nothing in the special planning district that states that there needs to be a certain level of eclecticness or different styles. There is still the possibility that people want to choose to see a little bit more consistency. And that I don't know if the SPA needs to be rewritten, if the individuals who want to protect the nature of the village want to see different styles as an enforced rule. But I think generally people do like to see some consistency. So I just want to present that as a possibility that, I think there was some engagement. It is a beautiful building, beautiful structure, proposal, in my opinion. And it may have gone this way no matter how much engagement there was. But I think we're looking at one proposal in front of us, and we have to consider it for what it is. And if there's concern about the sort of consistent nature going against what the village is and the nature of the village, I think we have to address that outside of this one project.
I like it. Member Corcos, I want to interject something here. Okay, I'm going to say straight away, in my opinion, it's unprecedented. It's unprecedented that a public agency that did not better engage the public. I know when the Park District was going through that, they had people coming out their ears attending these workshops because they put it out in the mail. They put it out everywhere. I get a water bill every 2 months. Should have been in there. I mean, this is a publicly owned company trying to do something, and I feel like it was like slid under the carpet. Just saying. I mean, it's a beautiful building. I'm not going to doubt the design's gorgeous. It's a beautiful building, but I don't think the members of the residents of Fair Oaks have any idea that this is going on.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very good point, Member Corpus, that the water bills, if someone pays online, these are all opportunities of touch points, multiple touch points throughout the year, at least a single touch point each. I think it's billed every month or how often I pay, but any one of those would have been opportunities to at least notice people. That is a very good point. And I think, unfortunately, I think we have to put a little bit of the onus on the county too to encourage that process, as they've been working with the Fair Oaks Water District for some time too. So I think definitely the ball was dropped on the community engagement piece. I think we can agree on that. At this time, and we'll have an opportunity for further discussion, but at this time we want to move on to seeing if there are any public comments.
This is Darrell with the clerk of the board. Right now we do have one public comment, verbal public comment. And if we can have that caller sent through, please.
Hello.
Hi. Welcome. You are on the Fair Oaks CPAC, and you can have 3 minutes to present on the item.
Yes.
Go ahead when you're ready.
It's Fred Klass. I'm here with my wife, Peggy Pleck. Our property is the one immediately north of the yard on the west side where the gravel bins are supposed to go and the dumpster. And we are calling to oppose this project in the strongest possible terms. I'm quite disappointed in all of this because our deck is raised and we are visible every day to the staff of the water district. They know we're here. We're not invisible. And yet they've intentionally designed this in a way that shoves all of this onto our property. I want to quote just briefly from the Gutierrez document that was presented or sent to the district, I assume, on December 21st, 2020. And it says, in our proposed design, all of the soils will be relocated to the northwest side. In parallel with this, the large trucks and tractor noise will be in this area as well. So we are just over the fence from where those gravel pits are going to be, and our deck is just a few feet beyond the fence. I also would point out that there was no outreach to us at all. the first notice that we got was in the mail, I believe, on June 27th. And it was deceiving in that the project site, the address for the project site was listed as the address 10326 Fair Oaks Boulevard, which is the administrative office across the street. The actual address for the site project is 10317. So initially, we didn't pay much attention to it because we thought the project was on the other side of the street. It just so happens that my wife, out of curiosity yesterday, decided to look up the plans on the web, and we realized what this plan was and what it was going to do to our property. We're really not anxious to have diesel fumes and dumpster smells right over the fence from our property.
Much for your comments. And at this point, if the applicant, we can actually keep the, because we only have one public comment, the applicant wants to respond to any of the concerns or comments from the public, particularly around engagement.
Yeah. Hello. So, we're not changing the use, but we definitely, I apologize for you not notified. We'd like to work with you to make sure that, we're accommodating you because you are our direct neighbor. So our intention is to make sure everything's covered, everything's walled off. So that way, you're not going to be getting dust. You're not going to be getting any fumes. I know it looks like your house has a lot of, I'm not sure what kind of trees. Are they redwood trees? Kind of to add screening there. And then the garbage enclosure, that's going to be closed. So it's only going to be open to the front. It's not going to be open to the rear. And then the spoils, which are the more, heavier spoils, those are going to be towards the front of the site. And on the rear side there, I think it's just asphalt and gravel, but, we could readjust it to make sure that whatever we have there, it's the least impactful. And then there's also going to be, a wall there, a concrete wall. So, hopefully there won't be a lot of noise getting transferred onto your rear yard. But again, we'd like to work with you and make sure that, we're as accommodating as possible. The reason why we moved it really works better for our site and the turnaround for deliveries. It works really well for us. But yeah, maybe there's something we could do to help improve it for you also.
And so one thing I'd like to suggest, usually if we would have been in person, we would just ask people to exchange contact information. But I'll ask the member of the public to contact the clerk of the board, which that would be Durrell. Is the email still townsends@saccounty.net?
Yes, and they would also be able to contact planning as well, because planning is going to have the site plan and all the applicants and the architect's information to contact them. So it would probably be better to contact planning. They can also, if I don't know if we can get that first slide back on the presentation, or the second slide where it had the information where they can go to the website and access the planning documents there, and they should be able to.
Yeah, so you have a couple of different options in terms of reaching out. You can go to that planning site. You can email townsends@saccounty.net, and that's TOWNSENDS@saccounty.net. And the phone number for our meeting clerk is 916-874-8022. And they can connect you. So we share contact information so you can work with the water district about any some accommodations for the property that may be necessary. And so, Jarrell, just to confirm, we don't have any other comments?
No, we do not have any additional verbal public comments at this time for item number 2.
Okay, so we can close public comment at this time. I think, I'm starting to become more concerned. I was already a bit concerned, but my concern is raising, having heard from a member of the public whose property abuts this property and was not noticed until recently and had not heard anything about the project. That's pretty upsetting. And again, like, we're going many opportunities that have passed where we would have seen and encouraged outreach to the public. And this is something that we encourage on almost every, unless it's already been done, we encourage it on every item that comes before us. Usually, if we see any kind of issue with a design or tension or strife between an applicant and nearby residents, it's I can say pretty confidently that almost always there's been little to no outreach to those members of the community, and we always encourage that. There's so many different ways, even in the height of the pandemic, that we saw and encouraged different forms of outreach. And it's really disappointing to see that didn't happen from a public entity. And given that there, typically, and I want to confirm this with the county, typically people would be noticed that are within 500 feet of the property. But since this property address was actually listed differently, who and how many people were noticed on this item, roughly?
Yeah, so we do a 500-foot mailing radius, and it looks like we had 271 notices mailed out. So just to kind of give a little bit more background too, so the state requirement is to do noticing to 300 feet, but our county code does require a 500-foot radius from the project site, as well as if the 500 feet results in less than 30 unique addresses, then we do expand that radius. So it's either 500 feet or 30 unique addresses. We have also updated our mailing procedures to also include tenants of project site in the area, not just property owners. So this does include.
That's great. I was going to ask that because I think that's come up before. Okay.
Yeah. So the mailing list did include both property owners as well as tenants.
Member Corcos here. I'd like to interject that I have in my hand the County of Sacramento notice postmarked the 25th of June. So that's like a week ago. Really?
And member Corcos, just to confirm, you have that notice because obviously you are an owner of a property within that 500 feet range. So, we want to make sure that not to add in any conflicts there, but the date, and this was also mentioned by the individual who made public comment. I also thought noticing had to go out at least 2 weeks in advance. Isn't that what had been said? 2 weeks?
It's 10 days.
Right.
10 days.
From the board's office, it is a 10-day, but we try and get that out before the 10-day period, and that is more than 10 days. So, but we do, that is the very minimum is 10 days.
Okay, so this was exactly 10 days over a holiday.
Well, that's from the postmark. Doesn't mean when it was actually, yes. But again, to use the phrase I've heard this evening a few times, water under the bridge. I'm going to say that if I've sat through many of these, as have you, Ms. Friedman, and in every single case, when we find out whether it's somebody that wants to do a lot split or 6 homes or whatever, that the neighbors were never talked to, that there was no public outreach, we never, we put it off. This stuff needs to get worked out. I'm going to tell you, I sat in, this is pre-pandemic, okay? I personally sat in the room at the Fair Oaks Water District with a couple of employees trying to figure out some water issue I had. And I'm going to tell you that was probably November of 2019. And there was pictures all over the boardroom of this project coming up. So this has been going on a long time. This isn't just coming out of nowhere.
So just for the record, we have moved on to kind of open comment with the CPAC members and discussion. So we're kind of reaching that point. I do want to clarify one thing with the county around procedure. So we've seen, and for the applicant, please stop me, the members of the county, if I'm saying anything incorrect here, but there are a couple of options before the CPAC at this point. We can obviously make a recommendation to approve. We can make a recommendation to deny the item. We typically do not and I think maybe we don't at this point anymore have the option to just continue. We tend not to do that. However, so typically when and please anyone on any of our CPAC members who've been around and disagree with me on this, but I'm talking in generalizations here. Typically, if we are moving toward potentially denying an item, we try to give the applicant the opportunity to, or recommend to deny. We give the applicant the opportunity to ask for a continuance themselves. Am I making all of the correct statements that these are the options before us? Asking this question to the county. Obviously, I know that we can approve or deny, but the continuance request can be made by the applicant.
Yes.
Okay, and that does need to be initiated by the applicant, and so what I'm leaning toward is, of course, this decision can only be made by the applicant, but I do think that it would be in the best interest of the applicant at this time to continue the item for at least another month and have and take some initiative to engage members of the community with and it may be more than a month that would be necessary to do. Certainly the county has done what is required of them. And this is not the county's responsibility to take on this notification and this outreach. That's absolutely upon the applicant in any case, whether it's a public entity or otherwise. The onus is on the applicant to do that. So whether it's a workshop, whether it's a postcard campaign, whether it's putting notices on water bills, on websites, having public meetings, all of these, engaging in other public meetings as well, and asking for some time on the agenda in all of those other meetings. But it's especially disappointing to see that wasn't taken on in the case of a public entity. So I want to kind of engage or any other members of the CPAC have any comments or want to sort of speak to what I'm talking about here. That sounds reasonable to folks.
This is Alma from the clerk's office, Chairperson Friedman.
Mm-hmm.
The CPAC does have the ability to continue an item a maximum of one time by the council. However, the applicant or applicant's representative may request a further continuance, such as to address community concerns and comments.
Okay, so the first time it would just be a continuance. We could,
if that's what the council would decide to do, yes.
Okay, and then I think, so you're saying also at any point the applicant can request the continuance themselves, or they have to wait until after we've done that? Okay.
No, correct.
Okay. Okay, so I'm interested to hear from members of the CPAC or the applicant at this point with any thoughts on this possibility.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hello?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. This is Tom Gray. I'm the general manager of the Fair Oaks Water District. And I wasn't prepared to present. We have our consultant presenting tonight. But please understand to all members of the committee and to members of the public that are listening, we're a member of the community. Each board member and myself have lived in the Fair Oaks community. We're active participants in the community. A lot of the people present or attending the meeting right now are acquaintances, are friends. So we understand your concerns. And at the beginning of this project, we looked at doing it much like we did our current administrative building. And we understand our community and the process. And when we did our current building that we are housed in now, we did what's called a design charrette process, by which we had multiple non-required meetings where we just addressed our neighbors and friends and had them come in and look. And that's why we did 3 different designs, with the idea that we wanted public input. We didn't want to shove one design at our neighbors and friends. We wanted to give them options to vote on and to look at. And in this case, we started out the project really wanting to do that, knowing our community. And the board and our consultants got together and they looked at COVID-19 and the opportunities to do that. And they said, it's not available like we did our first building. And they looked at using the county process to do the public outreach. It's not how we would typically do it. It's not how we would normally handle our neighbors and friends, but it's how it went. And if it's a desire of this community to have, now that things are opening up a little more, 1 or 2 public meetings by which they're informal and we invite our neighbors and friends in to talk to us that we all know personally, we'd be happy to do it.
Yeah, so this is Chair Friedman again. I don't think anyone's here to drag anyone through the mud or tell people they didn't do their jobs fully. A couple of things though, with the using the county process, there were additional outreach points that were actually not taken advantage of. So using a early planning workshop through the CPAC was an option. So the people who were noticed for this item, in the same way, the same number of people who were noticed could have been noticed for a workshop. It could have been a discussion. There were still many options for public engagement and outreach that were ongoing, including CPAC, including it sounds like your public meetings as well, your monthly meetings. So none of that public outreach stopped, except for maybe early on as some of those meetings were being transformed into allowing public engagement opportunities at the start of COVID. I think for the CPAC, we had 1 or 2 meetings that were canceled. Beyond that, we transformed our meetings, and I assume that you did something similar as well. So those options still were available. Sending postcards to people, having dial-in lines, all of those were available. So I hate to say that you were misadvised by your consultant, but public engagement and people's public interest still remains even through the pandemic, if not more, because they're spending more time at home. So their interest in their community has elevated rather than gone down. So I'm just really sorry to hear that was the case. But certainly I think that we're probably leaning toward either the CPAC members requesting a continuance, which would be a one-time continuance, or if you would want to take that opportunity yourselves, you could make that request.
And Chair Freeman, this is Member Bowman. Just to piggyback on that a little bit, and I think that item 1 versus item 2 is a great stark example of the differences. Item 1 came to us for early review in January. At that time, there were 9 written public comments and 4 verbal public comments for that meeting, all of which opposed the project. And then here we are 6 months later, without one opposition, without any public comment on it, because they took the advice of the CPAC and the county and their constituents and the neighbors by listening and having further additional outreach. So I think it just goes to show that, 1, there were avenues available, and 2, it works. I mean, they were able to clear up and take a project that probably may have been recommended for not being approved based on public input to what happened today. So it does have value.
That's a really great point, Member Bowman, and I appreciate what the applicant is saying about being members of the community themselves. We are members of the community on the CPAC. All of the CPAC members are members of the community, but we never, or we aim to never make an assumption about what neighbors of a project are experiencing, and individuals in the surrounding area or in a particular community within the Fair Oaks community, and how that's impacted. So. And certainly, I think, and some of us, I should also add, are public servants and have worked in some public institutions as well. So we certainly, are dedicated and committed to making the best choices of our community. But of course, we also recognize, and I think this is the case with the Fair Oaks Water District, you have a certain vested interest. So your employees have a certain vested interest that may be considerably different than the neighbors of a property and what they will experience. So to not have engaged those members of the community specifically, and to not make a huge attempt to engage everyone who is one of your customers, or at least even some of your customers, and to make those decisions really with the employees and some of the other individuals within the Fair Oaks Water District. I think that's what's disappointing to us. So even though there hasn't been a large turnout in terms of public response, I think that we would like to see if time and opportunity for engagement changes some of the input that you've received.
And this is Tom again. If I can make one more comment, please.
Sure.
And that is, we've I've been at the district for over 16 years now, and the board has been pretty consistent. And typically, what we attempt to do, and hopefully this coincides with the committee, is we believe that when we have some sort of a public project or public service to do, and there is some opposition, if we work well with opposition, if we educate and compromise and come to resolution, what typically happens is when we come before a body like this, the people that had the biggest interest and maybe the biggest conflicts then come forward because they were a part of the process endorsing the project, not opposing the project, if we've done our job right.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. I think just in this case, we're seeing that no one knows. So you don't have, I don't know that you've seen the opposition yet. I don't know that you've seen the support yet. I hope that will play out in that same way, because I think members of the CPAC would probably agree that's what we see as well. And that's what we aim to.
On behalf of the Fair Oaks Water District Board of Directors, the management, the staff, And as a neighbor and a friend of a number of people in the community, yeah, we'd like to take another month or two and do some local community outreach. I know some of the members of the committee are neighbors of ours that we've had interactions over parking, etc. And we first and foremost have to serve the mission of the district, but we always look at how can we do that without crossing the line and also do residual benefit to our community. And one example of that is right down the street, the Fair Oaks Historic Center. We own that building. We bought it for the future of the water supply of the well right behind it. But in the interim, we essentially give it to the community for free for a community benefit. And we know how to do that. And we would like the opportunity to operate in that manner.
Thank you, and I think that that's a great decision. So it sounds like you're making a request for a continuance to the county, to our clerk. Does that need to have any sort of approval or vote from the CPAC members?
Yes, I'm sorry, this is Darrell, the clerk of the board. Yes, someone would need to make a motion in a second and a vote for a continuance and you would want to specify how long. So either the 1 month, the 2 months.
Okay, I would be happy to go ahead and that's the case even if the applicant is making that request?
Yes, because this item is still on the agenda as a voting item.
Okay.
So the CPAC would still need to make a vote on this.
Okay, so Tom, are you comfortable with a 2-month continuance to start, and then you the CPAC actually will still have the opportunity to request a
yes, comfortable with 2 months because we want to step forward and show our goodwill to the community and that we want to do the best we can. With the only condition is an understanding that because we're fee for service, we have to constantly work in accordance with our mission. As much as we want to be a community, do things for the community or do things that's in our heart, we have to make sure that somehow we marry it to the mission of the district.
Absolutely. Yep. No, we recognize this, and I don't think, again, I don't want to speak for everyone on the CPAC, but I think that we can all agree probably. If there's any opposition, please, everyone speak up. Feel free to speak up. But we know that your intentions are good, that you're doing important work for the community. We absolutely appreciate that, and the overall commitment that the water district has to shaping the community and supporting the community. So we definitely appreciate that, and we certainly recognize the challenges that come with that as well. So having said that, at the request of the applicant, I'd like to propose a 2-month continuance, and if there is a second on that item.
Member Bowman, I'll second.
Great. And then we will do a roll call vote.
Yes. Member Bowman?
Yes.
Member Korkos?
I'm doing an abstention.
Member Leese?
Yes.
Member Starkovic? Member Walter? Member Wood?
Approve.
And Member Freeman?
Approve.
And your motion carries with Member Korkos abstaining.
All right, thank you. And then, if there's any interest in outreach to the CPAC, a number of us can make ourselves available if there's any questions or concerns. And I know you are in the good hands of a county planner as well. So we thank you for your time, and we do look forward to hearing this item. September meeting, and I think 2 months, especially with the summer, is certainly a good choice. So appreciate that and look forward to hearing about that item in a couple of months. And at this point, we'll move on to if there are any staff updates.
I do not have a staff update tonight. Thank you.
Any council member comments?
Do we know when we're going live?
I was going to say that's the same
Leon
thing.
is very, you are very eager to, you must miss us all.
I do.
Sorry, this is Darrell with the clerk of the board. I'm assuming when you say live, you mean back in person.
Yes.
At this time, we do not have an exact date when we will be going back in person. Right now, we are coming up with a plan for us to be able to run these meetings. They're going to have to be some type of hybrid meeting because now we're going to have that online aspect as well as in person. So once we get that into place, then we will be meeting back in person. But there is no exact date of when that time will be.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's great that they're going to continue the option just for out of people's comfort level around the pandemic, but also just going forward for accessibility to these meetings for the broader community. So I think that that's great that you're looking into that hybrid model. Any other council member comments? I want to say one thing, and I don't want to sort of scold anyone from the county, but I would love to see if encouraging outreach can be part of a conversation that planners have, and I know that many planners do have that conversation with applicants, but to make that as part of a standard process, I'd love to know if it is part of the process to ask people how they engage members of the community. All of the options that might be available to them. That's part of a kind of a standard process and conversation that you have with every applicant. Because I think we see people run into trouble or extensions or a sort of a cycle when they don't do that, and it's unfortunate that happens.
Yeah, this is Kimber Gutierrez of Sacramento County Planning. I can address that a little bit. We do actually on our application form, we have a spot to have applicants kind of describe any neighborhood outreach plan that they are doing. In most cases, I would say it's more common to see them just defer to the county process, notification process. But, we do have, this early CPAC workshop availability. And, we have in some cases had applicants conduct a CPAC workshop even after they've already formally submitted because they want to kind of get in front of the CPAC before they kind of continue on in the process. So it is something that is required as part of the application form for applicants to describe any additional outreach that they plan on doing or did. But we definitely do not, require them to do anything additional. I think it's definitely more of the encouragement and recommendation on the side of staff.
I'm glad to hear that that's both on the form, but also something that staff encourages. Because I know you've all seen how it plays out as well. So great. I appreciate that. So it sounds like there's no other comments from the CPAC, but I'll do a final. Any other comments from anyone? Gerald, do we have any public comments waiting?
We do not have any public comment at this time for item number 5. And I also wanted to state for the record that there was no verbal public comment for item number 3 or 4 either, which was the staff update and the council member comments.
Perfect, thank you. And then I do want to call our members' attention to an email that was sent out. There was one public comment received later about the first item that we heard. Nothing that I think you will see that will change how we voted on things, but just to call your attention to that. And that is part of the standard process that comments can be received even after an item has been closed. So that will be added for the record and not read into the record. And with that, we will plan to be back on a virtual meeting in August. Our meeting is scheduled for August 4th, And until then, everyone enjoy the summer, stay cool, and we will adjourn the meeting now. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Good night.